Well, and like we discussed the prayer in a previous episode.
Yeah.
It's just simply talking,
Yeah.
sharing, and like from the heart, and the realness of that.
Yeah. And I think, you look at Jesus, some of them are deep theological prayers, but he's just saying, Father, just show them who you are. And so there's this simplicity of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
welcome to all the nations. Oh, cut that. You need a sleep. Was that good enough for you?
Yeah, we were good before.
Okay. I kind of figured we were rolling. But anyway, man, I got to get it. Yeah, anyway, all right.
This is all statement.
Truth be told. All right. Welcome to Truth Be Told. We're excited that you're here with us today. And today we're going to be talking about where God is at work in our lives. 3 questions, kind of one question summed up in 3 parts. Where is God at work in my life or your life? Where is he at work around you? And where is he at work through you? And those are the 3 questions you asked the first time I came to ATN. And we asked them again to several of the members this past week. And me and a friend were discussing that. And he had the same response I had. He's like, I don't have an answer for that. And I felt the same way. So I'm like, don't worry about that. But it gets you thinking about it.
Yeah, Max, I'm surprised that you hadn't thought about that really, because a guy that drives a Chev with a Duramax, he should always be wondering.
I know, and it's broke down right now too.
Yeah, it might have real reason though. How many Ks on this thing?
830,000.
830,000. So 500,000 miles for our American friends that are listening to this, and it's simply transfer cases at this time. But where is God at work around us? And I remember we went into Wembley and to start a church, and we had nobody to play guitar and instruments and so on, and it was strange because we really weren't going to start a church right from the beginning moment. We were going to train people what is church, because most people think church is a building, and so you'll ask them, where's your church, and they'll point out a location. And so I was trying to get away from that. The church is the people, it's not the building, and so we had no one, people come. Actually, we had people start coming in that we hadn't planned to come, and so I go, okay, yeah, now we basically got to have a church service for them. Yeah. But we had no one to play guitar, we had no one to play piano, we had no one to play any of these instruments, and I go, how can I help people to worship without music? And I definitely wasn't the one who's going to lead them to worship with or without music as far as singing and so on. And so we went probably about a year. And in that year, when everybody would get there on Sunday morning, I would ask the question, what is God doing around you? Where is God at work around you? And that was the question. And the first time that I started asking that, I got all of these looks at me and say, what do you mean? Should I recognize, is God at work around me? Should I recognize God at work around me? And if he's at work around me, what is he doing? And why is he showing me what he's doing? And so I'll just leave that with you, Max, for a minute, and I'll come back to that because I think there's some really important stuff. But if you want to answer some of those questions, great.
Yeah, well, I think for myself, it was like I was kind of awestruck, the same thing. My eyes went, I didn't know. I felt like I should know the answer to that question, but I also had never been asked that question. And I felt like it was an elevated question and be like, oh, God's only at work in certain people's lives. He's only doing certain things. So it was kind of like far removed.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, I know he's at work, but is he really at work in my life? I don't see it. But I was never asked the question, and I never asked the question of myself, so I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
Talking with a friend, when he gave me the same answer, I was like, I relate to that because it's exactly how I felt, and I still struggle with that feeling. I'm like, when you asked me that this past week, I was like, I can answer that question, but I really have to think about it. And then I'm like, I should be thinking about this every day. I shouldn't be thinking about it just when you ask or when somebody asks, because what I see, or what I once that question asked, and once I started reading the scriptures for myself, it was like, okay, what does Jesus do? Boil it down as simple as that.
Absolutely.
You know what? And he says, I don't do anything on my own.
Yeah.
I only listen to what the Father's doing. So what is he doing? He's looking to where God is at work.
Yeah.
And yeah, he is part God, part of that, but he's fully man as well. So he was just simply watching for our example.
Yeah. So I want to correct you just for a second, for some sake of some of those that are watching that. You said he's part man. No, he was 100% man, 100%
Yes.
God, and you
better.
believe in that. He's 100% humanity and 100% God, and in that. So just to clarify that. Anyway, when you're thinking about that, and when we went into Wembley, I actually thought I had a plan. And when I went in there, I thought there will be all kinds of people that will be interested in the gospel, in a church, in the gospel, in believers there. And so we'll have people, we'll do this program, we'll do this. And I'm a year in to that. And I look around and we don't have people and we don't have resources. And I go, oh, God, what in the world am I doing here? And that really sent me on this journey that I began to introduce others to, because we don't expect that God is always at work around us. Henry Blackaby in his series that he does on experiencing God, he talks God is always at work around us, and I knew that intellectually, but now I had no people and I had nothing, and so I go, what am I doing here? And so I sat, and that my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And so, okay, I should be recognizing your voice, because that seems to be abnormal in our Christianity today.
Yeah.
That we expect that we should be hearing Jesus' voice. But Jesus said, my sheep, he makes a statement. He says, my sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. And so that was part of that. That was the very first part of that journey for me. And then Jesus said, I don't do anything on my own, because he came to do the will of the Father. He said, I watch what the Father's doing around me, and I join him. And so then I started watching who was coming through, who was sticking their head through the door, who was I meeting when I went for my walk or my run, who was I meeting then? And, even that smallest interaction, because we're looking for the big wow thing, right?
Not the interruptions, especially.
Exactly. We want whatever it is. We want the X number of people that are there. We want a big event and so on. And then I began to realize that those interruptions that you're talking about, and I began to watch what God was doing in those, and that started me on this journey that I kept asking throughout the whole year. We didn't have music, and it was later that Sherry and Abby started with the karaoke machine, and then Jerry came, and then we had another young couple that came for a while, and they moved to southern Alberta afterwards. But I kept asking that question, and what was interesting, the first week was almost silence, and I had to give all the examples because I'd been thinking about it, right? And to expect an answer from somebody that hasn't been thinking of it is kind of unfair. Yeah. And I'm glad we weren't recording back then, by the way, on our Facebook Live. But what shocked me was one week there was I think she was 11 years old at the time, one of the young girls that was coming with her mom. And she goes, I saw God at work this week. And I'm curious now, right? When an 11-year-old says, yeah, I saw God at work this week. Yeah. Where did she see him? What was he doing? She was in a school system, and she had no friends. She had this friend that she wanted to be her friend, who was a bully.
Right.
And it's strange that you want to be friends with the bully, and that probably is a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
And so she prayed and she said, God, would you give me a friend at school? And she was thinking of this person that was the bully would be her friend. And she shared that Sunday. She said, that didn't work. But she said, God gave me 4 friends this week. And that was monumental for her. And I think for others, because they're saying, if an 11-year-old can see God at work around them, I should be able to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The simplicity of that. Yeah. And I find it interesting because she had a plan. It's like, hey, I'm going to pray. I want this friend.
Yeah.
God didn't give her that friend, but he gave her 4 different ones. So more and different, but different according to the plan. But at the same time, the result was what the answer, prayer was answered.
Yeah.
So, in the simplest form.
Yeah, Max, goes back to what you asked your friend and what I asked you. Okay, where is God at work? What's God doing inside of me? Mm-hmm. And beginning to recognize that, and there are seasons and stages in our lives where God is at work. Sometimes He's moving us closer to Christ, and we realize we need to get there. And sometimes He's moving us closer to people so that we can see Christ in the midst of that, right? And so there is this whole thing of watching where He's at work in me. And then, what is God doing? Mm-hmm. And then watching, somebody has broke down along the street, or somebody comes into your shop and they're asking about performance lighting, or they're asking about Tri-Pack and your products. Mm-hmm. But you sense there's something different. Mm-hmm. There's something bigger than that. And so watching and listening very carefully to what they're saying. Yep. So you enter into the conversation where they are. Mm-hmm. And then what is God, and that goes along with that whole thing of what is God doing through you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't know, you don't necessarily see that result. Or, that's that one's tough because, I can see sometimes when I'm looking where He's at work around me, or what is He trying to tell me or teach me. Sometimes it's easier to see that because the teaching generally comes through circumstances that aren't necessarily all that fun.
Exactly.
And we've went through several that we're going through some right now, so it's on my mind. But okay, I also have to look at who's coming into my life and what is God's plan for that person as well. And I'm a child of His, so He's coming. If He's brought him into my life, or him or her into my life, what is my role in that? Yeah.
So Max, I think in regard to that, we often think we go, what is God doing through me? And we go, I'm not Will Graham. He was just here and did a phenomenal job with the look up thing. And so that was wonderful to see. And we often think, I'm not Will Graham, I'm not Billy Graham, and I'm not. Mm-hmm. And we really don't see the impact that God is doing through us. But it's often those things of listening to somebody, the little acts of kindness and so on, that give us an inroad into their life. And Max, would you lead us in a word of prayer just for people so they can start watching for that?
Definitely. Yeah. Dear Father, thank you for today. Thank you that we can just join and see where you're at work, and think about that. I just pray that we would keep that fresh on our minds as we go about the week, through the highs and lows. And it's often easier to see in certain circumstances, but through the challenging ones, I just pray that we would, for myself and everybody listening, that we would just watch and see where you're at work, just the way Jesus did in watching where the Father was at work, and just simply join Him in that. Say yes to Him. Say no to ourselves and what we want to do, and say yes to Jesus and where He is leading us. So Lord, I just pray that that thought would be with everybody this week, and I just pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, thank you for joining us on The Truth Be Told.